Hey, everybody. How y'all tonight? How are you all tonight? It's me. It is Wednesday. I am Heather. How y'all doing? I am going to wait for a couple of you people to join, and we're going to go from there. Tonight, I think, is a pretty important topic, considering everything that's going on. So hopefully, hey Andre, thank you for joining. Make sure y'all hear me, because last time y'all let me sit up here and talk for 7 minutes and ain't nobody say nothing. Y'all was just hopping in and then hopping off like, girl, you tripping. And y'all ain't say nothing. And then I think the guy's name is Carlos was like, hey, we can't hear you. So make sure you can hear me. Hey, Lena, my sister here, my sister. Hey, Elgin. So we're going to just check it out, make sure everybody else join. And go from there. And good, you can hear me. That's what's up. So, how you doing this week so far? Since the last time I was here, last week. Y'all know everything. You know it's always something going on. So let's just kind of just get into that real quick. And then we're just going to hop off that because it is what it is at this point. So I don't know if you looked at the debate last night. We're going to call that a debate by title because that's what they call those forums. And I don't necessarily know if it was a debate. As far as were you looking for anything any different that you didn't already know? You know what I mean? That's kind of my question. And I laugh not because it's a laughing matter. Sometimes you just really have to laugh to keep from crying. But I mean, maybe for those undecided people, I don't know that it did anything for them either. But that's what we're working with. So as far as, I know it was a big deal about the conversation about him, the president not denouncing, basically, white supremacy. I don't necessarily consider it to be white supremacy because I don't consider white to be supreme. I consider it to be racism. So he's not going to denounce it. If you're looking for anything any different, I don't care how many billions of dollars he gives the black community and how much money goes to the HBCUs. He does not like you. Moving right along. Anything else that's going on? How y'all feeling? You feel a little anxious? Hope not. Hope y'all all right. So let's get into what we're going to be talking about tonight. I thought it was very important to speak about what I consider to be an attack on the First Amendment right. I'm not sure if you're familiar with it. You probably hear it, and we know like freedom of speech, free press, but also the right to peacefully protest and to petition the government for a readdress of grievances, which basically means what it says, a petition. The people can petition the government. And so in the state of Florida, there is a lot of legislative pull, and the governor is a part of this as well, to remove and to create laws and legislation that are in opposition to our Constitution. And that would be just the Supreme, the United States Constitution. And so I thought it was equally important for us to really talk about that because there's good things that have come out of it as of recently from people being able to petition. And basically what that is when Florida has this, and there's like 24 other states that have this. And I think it's important because if you're in those states, and I can list those later, when Florida starts making tweaks to their legislation, other states start to follow. And that's kind of how we got the increase in amount of people with the stand your ground, at least in the South. So that is the reason why I'm bringing this up. Hey, Thornton, I'm bringing this up because I want you to understand that if this is allowed to take place on our watch in our legislation, then what's going to take place is you're going to probably have other states assembling their legislation to do the same thing. And as of lately, it's odd because with all the things that we need done, things that could clearly be put into legislation quickly that would actually help the people, For instance, raising the minimum wage. They decide to go this route, and it just lets you know that the legislation isn't really, or at least they're not inclined to move on things that the people actually need, but the things that they feel like, the people at the top, or at Washington want, and they kind of just all taking the marching orders. And I just think, obviously, I have a problem with it. Hopefully, you have a problem with it as well. So we have a ballot initiative process, and what we do is the people can collect petitions, and we can initiate a law or some type of amendment, I should say, to be added to the Florida State Constitution. And through that process, that allows for the people to, get out there and connect with people, get signatures, and then as the people decide, they can decide if the government, or say for instance, if the state legislators, Congress people, or not, let me say state legislators, let's say that, if they're not moving fast enough, if they're not picking up an issue that your community has been taken to your representatives, and it's making it to the House, and maybe it's falling, and people are proposing the law, and it's not making it, so it's dying in the House, or whatever the case may be, the people can then take it upon themselves and say, we're going to initiate a ballot, and we're going to obtain petitions to make sure that we get it on the ballot. And then at that point, we don't have to go through legislation, and we're going to let the people decide. So just for you all to know, that is what Desmond Meade and Florida Restoration Rights Coalition did when they got Amendment 4 onto the ballot. I personally think they're upset with Desmond. And that's been very clear from the opposition that he continues to get with that. But the brothers continue, and along with everybody else, to work on that. And I'm sure the people who have met those requirements should be able to vote. The poll tax came in after the fact, and so that's what it is until they can work that out in the courts. So what they're doing right now, two things. They have proposed an increase, an additional restriction to people, the state of Florida, or at least the people who live in the state of Florida, being able to make passes at creating a ballot initiative and getting them on the ballot. And so last year, DeSantis, the governor, signed into law some changes, and those changes were they increased some things. They also made it penalties towards people who were trying to collect signatures. They made it where the people who are collecting signatures had to be registered with the supervisor of elections office. They had to get their forms from the office. They had to be assigned to the person. They made it very arduous, and so they made that process even more difficult, and they're proposing to make it even more difficult now. And I guess what you really need to know is that it's essentially taking away your voice. If they're saying we're going to make those climbs so high that by the time you get up into the altitude where you can't even breathe, you're going to die out anyway. That's essentially what's happening. And to me, that's a restriction of your First Amendment rights. That's at least one of them. And why should you have a problem with that? I'll tell you why. We wouldn't have Amendment 4 where people with felony convictions have their rights to restore the vote, because obviously I think it was Rick Scott got in the office and he decided, you know what, I'm just going to move all that. And so there was a process for it, but it takes forever and a day. It was a bottleneck, but that was the whole point of it. So this was to make it so that it didn't have to go through legislature. The people would decide, and then automatically your rights would be restored once you had completed everything. That's also how medical marijuana got passed in the state, is by petition-led initiative ballots. So right now, and I think 2021, and even up until right now, there are some initiatives. One of them being raising the minimum wage to $15 an hour. That also is an initiative, and I think that should be something that we should all be looking to do, because obviously the cost of living has gone up, inflation has gone up, but what hasn't gone up is wages, and that would be helpful to a lot of people. And those are the things that were, that was the people's push, that was the people's voice. So I wanted to bring that up to you all, because I want you to understand that we will almost lose that right. and the power will bypass the people, and the state legislator is proposing some increased restrictions. One of them is to increase the number of signatures required to trigger the Florida Supreme review of the ballots. Require increasing the current 10% statewide threshold to 25%. So that's a whole, that's double. You know what I mean? That's double what it is now, from 10 to 25%. They also want to make it where the Florida Supreme Court has the authority to decide if its initiative is facially invalid. So basically, on its face, when they read that initiative as it's written, is it a valid, ask? And they also want to limit the time signatures that are valid. And that means they'll be only available for 1 year of the election cycle. And I want you to know how crucial that is, because it took Desmond and FRC about 10 years to get Amendment 4 onto the ballot and in the process so people could vote for it. 10 years. That's a 10-year work process. So it's increasingly difficult. These imposed changes will make it even more difficult. And I don't want us to sit back and be like, oh, okay, well, that suck. Well, what's going to suck is that's how the stuff comes back and bite us in the ass later on. Because when we don't pay attention to the things that are going on right now, even if we're paying attention, we're not connecting the dots, because I don't want to insult anybody. But sometimes we're not connecting the dots to be like, oh, shoot. And all of a sudden there's something going on. And then the money's moved out your community, and they're shutting your schools down and stuff like that. Because we got to be trying to figure out how this stuff connects the dots for us. And that's just basically what I'm doing. This is just information that I thought was important to share with you. Again, this is the First Amendment. So let me tell you what really made me decide to go ahead and talk about this was the fact that I think it was last week or 2 weeks ago, the governor in Florida decided that he was going to create a Combating the Violence Protection Act. And it was strictly aimed at trying to criminalize people in any way they can who decide to exercise their right to a protest. And we've seen where there's things that's gotten out of hand, but we've also seen where those things that have gotten out of hand were not necessarily people who were a part of the protest. They were people that were coming in. They call them agent provocateurs that were coming in and, throwing bricks and looting and setting things on fire. Not all of it, but it was a good bit of that took place. But then you also had the law enforcement that were agitating the protesters. And so, are you supposed to sit there and get, beat down? I don't even understand. If you want to hold the people accountable for protesting, then you got to hold the people accountable for who is supposed to be there to make sure everything is in order. And when they get out of line, where's the accountability? And I just thought it was prime example of how the power is so, swayed, where you can take your time to write up something and act that will hold people accountable for exercising their First Amendment right, but you won't necessarily make sure you pass legislation to hold law enforcement accountable when they're outside of when they abuse or they're being they're neglecting their power. So I just thought it was worth mentioning, because so my sister said, Helena, suppressing voting rights, even suppressing the right to gain access to resources in low-income, underrepresented communities to become registered voters. It's really thick, and this stuff is so layered. This stuff is so layered. And it's just one act of suppression on top of another act of suppression on top of another act of suppression. And that is the reason why I wanted to bring it to you. Because if we don't make sure we first call the representatives and tell them, no, absolutely not. You need to make sure your vote is not for these proposed changes. Then you're going to have people that go there that are going to decide not to vote, or they're going to vote in favor. For the most part, Democrats don't vote in favor of this, but we also want to make sure the ones that are there do vote. The representative who's proposing this plan or this particular bill is the same person who is leading the way or proposed the bill to stop the returning citizens from voting with the poll tax. He's the same individual. And by the way, this guy is pretty young, and he's been in politics for a while. He's 38 years old. And so, there's term cycles, but what I've seen they're doing with his career is that when they know that he's going to reach a point here, then they move him into another role. He goes into another role. And so they're trying to wait until about 2022, 2024, so that he can be the House Speaker. And if he's already being able to propose this legislation and get people to co-sponsor this bill, that means he's able to kind of throw his weight in certain areas. And I think that's just way, way too much power, and it's completely imbalanced. One of the things that he mentioned was that he felt like the changes that he proposed were a process to protect the Constitution and to preserve the Republic. Let me tell you something about what the Republic is to them. The Republic does not include you. Actually, the Republican don't really, the Republic by definition does. But what they have now seemed to be doing is making the Republic about those in power and not the will of the people. And so this is the reason why this is important to talk about, because this is a chip away at democracy and heading way into fascism, way into that. And I think that if you consider where you stand in it, and if you have kids, then you need to consider what it is that they're going to grow up in and how things are going to affect them. Because if I'm just talking to myself, that's cool, but we all live in this world together, and I got little people too. And so I want to try to do my absolute best to kind of communicate and do my part. I do other things, but this is just something that is also helpful for people to understand that the power, by definition, the Republic says the government in which the powers of sovereignty are vested in the people, are exercised by the people, either directly or through representatives chosen by the people. The people is us. Somehow they got us twisted, thinking the people is just them. It's not. So when you used to hear that term, power to the people, back in the day, that's what they was talking about. They was really talking about that is the governing republic, is the people. And we got to figure out a way to make sure that these rights aren't violated. What's going to happen is the changes that he's trying to propose with this Combating Violence Protection Act is going to put people in jail with no bond, which is normally a disorderly contact, a disorderly assembly. They're trying to give you no bond for a disorderly assembly. I mean, it'll literally be your word against theirs. I mean, how could you win with that? So you'll be stuck taking a plea or conviction for something because you sitting there and you can't get out on bond or go to work. I'm telling you how this stuff gonna roll out, and it's just gonna be their word against our word, unless there's I think the last protest I seen or I went to, there was actually drones up in the air, which helped identify when things were said that was not accurate. And that's a good thing. But moving forward, if this sticks, then you have people who are going to abuse that power. In addition to that, he's also tying where he will defund. If anybody defunds the police, so say for instance, you take money, like the budget they just voted on for JSO in Jacksonville. If that money would have been taken in any way divested, then they would not have been able to exercise this act. That was stated in his write-up of this act, the Governor's Act. Where they do that? I mean, he's going to tell me what to do with my tax dollars? I mean, I don't know about y'all, but I feel some kind of way about my money. So then the question is, what would I do? I tell you what I would do. For one, I have drafted something to be able to be sent to the representatives. I am well aware that I know Angie Nixon would not be voting in favor for that. I'm very sure about that. In addition to that, I make sure that I try to spend my money in areas where people who look like me, and the things that I absolutely have to pay, like electricity and things like that. I mean, you can't get around that, but you got to do some studying to understand one of the things that helps racism thrive is it being so profitable. So I'm not quite sure, what that's going to look like for you, but I need for you to understand that it's not something that's going to go away. We do not know what's going to happen in November based on what we saw last night. Look like he ain't going down. He ain't going down without a fight. Like regardless of what goes on. Let me do this for y'all. Let's really prepare for the absolute worst. And I don't mean to be like a downtrodden. That's not even my style. But I think then we won't be caught off guard. I think the other thing I would consider, and I want y'all to hear me on this, do not be fearful. That is the whole purpose. They want us to be scared. We cannot be fearful. Do some research on your history. Know what we have come out of. Know it's in your DNA. Know where your people came from. Listen, I need you to understand that. I don't want us out here not being encouraged. I want us to be cautious, but I do not want us to be in fear. We truly do have the power. What is being exemplified is an illusion of what that looks like. Even though you're looking like, well, stuff is going on and they doing this and they doing that. For now, do you really think that can go on unbalanced like that? And stuff just don't all fall down? And you're going to have to decide what side you're on. And this is just not talk for me. I don't want to have to go, but if I got to, then that's just the way it is. But in the meantime, I could be aware. I can put proper preventions in place, be precautious, make sure I'm understanding of what I'm signing up for, exercising my right to vote, and amongst other things, really investing in our young kids so that they're not repeating the same cycles of lack of knowledge that we didn't know, and then we get in our 30s and 40s and we're like, hold up, okay, and then we got to shift and undo everything we did before. No, there are so many programs, there are so many tools, there's so many cohorts and people willing to fund bringing kids in to help them understand, in addition to the education that they get, what part of the civil process can they be a part of and how they can affect the changes in their communities. We're going to have to figure that out. It's not out there. It's just not a priority. It ain't sexy. It ain't cool. And I don't know how to to me, freedom and liberation is damn sexy and cool, but that's a matter of choice. And I just really don't want us to, where we have a voice, where we have the education, where we have the access, and we have the ability to collectively organize, for that to elude us. And we continue to believe we're at the mercy of people who clearly are running amok. So that's that. Hey, Nathan, I'm sorry, y'all. Hey, y'all. No worries. I appreciate that. I hope you heard me about investing in the kids, y'all, because that's the future. That is the future. We got to figure that out. And let me say this, because I want to keep it a buck with y'all. There was a petition led here to get $15 an hour increase, just minimum wage. And honestly, that isn't even really enough, but it would be helpful to some degree. And do you really think we're going to continue to ask our young people to vote in a democracy that doesn't seem to serve them well? They don't get paid much to do these jobs. And even I understand the crawl before you walk. I get it. May not have access to not even a 4-year education, but just being able to get a skill. And then you tell me you want me to go clean up at a hospital on third shift for $12 an hour. let's be 100. That's trapping hours. I'd rather trap first than do that. Now, I got good conscience. I wouldn't. But I'm just saying, we're talking about survival. So let's just be honest about that stuff. We're going to have to figure that out. Because we can't keep telling them this, and we don't have ways to be able to help them learn how to be self-sufficient. Help them understand where your power is. Help you understand that the power is in you. You have it as long as we are united. And I could care less about a little bit of things, just the nuances and stuff. Because for me, that don't really matter. Even if, yeah, you know what I'm on the surface. I don't like what this person said because they. One thing about it, you better believe them people can't stand him, but they are standing lock, key, and step all the way to snatching up an election and just wiping out everything else that's been built for years. We're going to have to figure it out. I'm done preaching. I will post some tools. I'll post some tools in my post, and hopefully we can get there. I know that it was a lot of money that was, donated for helping people pay off their fees and their fines. If you know somebody who needs that, by all means, make sure you reach out. Go out to FRRC website. I think it'd be a good opportunity for us to really start figuring out if there's people who can donate money, like the ones who donated towards that cause, to really start insulating and rising up a person that we want in key positions in city council, as well as representatives, and get them people elected. So it's not special interest, because right now with our vote and lobbyists, we so out. How can you win with that? How can you win with lobbyists who carry the legislation? They buy what they want. The political power that they have, we don't have that. So remain hopeful. This is not a doom and gloom thing. It's possible. We're just gonna have to get that information that we have, get it circulated. Again, the nuances of things. You have to make a decision. A lot of patience, and that's pretty much it. I don't see anything else. Brian says we just need to invest in each other and our children and their children. Raphael, what's up, bro? Better pay them before they start paying themselves. Hey, people gonna eat. People gonna eat. We gonna go into a survival of the fittest time. We darn near now. It's gonna be a good look for everybody. Samaya, hey. And I just don't want us to continue to be the hunted. We come from a lineage too dang on powerful for us just to be hunted. And I'm gonna put some documentaries for those who don't like to read books. I mean, I get it. I can get lost in a book, but I'm gonna put some things, just kind of understand the origins. And I've seen several different of them, and they're all consistently the same thing. It's very empowering. And then also some things that could, you could give to your children, or at least there's a couple of other different cohorts and things coming up where people are teaching kids stuff. There's a lady who puts out a lot of vines, a lot of educational, a lot of toolkits. I put those in there. At least the websites, you can kind of pick through there and see what works for you, what doesn't. Let's just try to figure this out. Let's get ahead of it. Make sure now we're aware, maybe execute some action, but make sure these people do not continue to chip away at your democracy by using the law to do it. Because that's what's going on. I appreciate y'all. Thank you, bruh. My brother, love you too. I appreciate you all joining and connecting with me. It's really helpful. I just really want us to do well. And I love being black. I could drink it. Love it. Hope you love it too. Y'all take care. Peace out.